Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm taking a deep dive look at the life and legacy of Larry Linville. Larry brought to life one of the most iconic television characters of all time, Major Frank Burns from the hit television series MASH. Was Larry Linville a jerk in real life, much like the characters he came to be known for playing? Now, MASH originated as a novel in 1968 written by author Richard Hooker, who based the books upon his time as an army surgeon during the Korean War. Then, in 1970, the film adaptation of the novel was released. It starred Donald Sutherland as Hawkeye Pierce and Elliot Gould as Trapper John McIntyre, and it was directed by Robert Altman. Now, for those who've never seen the film, you should know that Robert Altman's unique film style makes the film quite different from what we all know as the MASH television series. In addition to Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould, it also starred Robert Duvall as Major Frank Burns and Sally Kellerman as Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan. The film became the most successful comedy of 1970. So, in 1972, MASH made its way to television screens and would go on to be one of the most popular television shows of all time. It starred Alan Alda as Hawkeye, Wayne Rogers as Trapper John, McLean Stevenson as Colonel Henry Blake, and replacing Robert Duvall as Major Frank Burns would be Larry Linville. And while Robert Duvall is an amazing actor, in my opinion, Linville's portrayal of Frank Burns is by far the best. He plays his part to perfection. The character of Frank Burns was a civilian doctor prior to the war, and he has embraced, or do I even dare say, he relishes military life. He is at constant odds with his tent mates and other surgeons, Hawkeye and Trapper John, and even later B.J. Honeycutt, and he loves to remind them that he has a higher rank than they do. A bit about Larry Linville. He had been acting in television since as early as 1968. One of his earliest recurring roles was in the series Mannix, where he played Lieutenant George Kramer in 8 different episodes from 1968 through 1970. His career in television would span over 30 years. And with that said, it was his role in MASH that he will forever be associated with. His portrayal would make Frank Burns arguably one of the most memorable television characters of all time. Linville was hilarious in this role, playing a character that you just love to hate. He could be arrogant, vindictive, whiny, and pathetic, all in the same episode. He was a weasel. In fact, Larry Linville's role as Major Frank Burns was so perfectly acted, he once stated that he received hate mail every week. Linville's contribution to the show was a big part of what made the first 5 seasons much more comedic than the later years. After the 5th season of MASH, despite the show being one of the most popular on television at the time, when the show's producers offered Linville a 2-year contract extension, he decided to walk away from the show. Linville would continue to act all the way through 1999, generally playing characters who were fairly despicable, whether it was the mysterious and unlikable Dr. Eric Albach from an episode of The Rockford Files, or a crazy hit-and-run driver named Carlin in the 2-part Season 3 opener of Chips. Linville even had a recurring role in the short-lived spin-off of The Jeffersons called Checking In, where he played a cantankerous hotel manager named Lyle Block. Now, when I say the series was short-lived, it really was. It was canceled after just 4 episodes due to its poor ratings. Linville had a small role in the 1982 Disney TV series Herbie the Love Bug as the unlikable Randy Bigelow. So I always find it interesting when an actor seems to get typecast into a specific type of role, and this seemed to happen to Larry Linville. I just started thinking there might be those out there who wondered if Larry was so good at these types of roles because he put some of himself into the parts. In fact, was Larry Linville a jerk in real life? Well, as you may have guessed, of course Larry Linville was not a jerk in real life. His MASH co-stars adored working with him. In sharp contrast to his Frank Burns character, other cast members stated that Linville himself was kind and friendly, along with being open-minded and courteous to others. Linville had been particularly close to Gary Berghoff, who described Linville as a Renaissance man who knew the intricacies of Egyptian pyramids along with building and flying his own airplane. Now, personally, I love the early seasons of MASH, and part of that love is directly due to Linville's portrayal of Frank Burns. Those early seasons were so funny, and it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that he was a great guy in real life. I think it takes a terrific actor to be able to pull off such a slimy character. And now for a short commercial break. Here's a quick commercial from IBM in the late 1980s featuring Larry and some of his former MASH colleagues.
Who, may I ask, authorized new computers?
Yeah, who?
You did.
Who did? I did? IBM. Of course I did.
The new IBM Personal System 2. The next generation in personal computing. New computers, new printers, and software. And IBM's new graphics put 256 colors on a screen at once, so our work will be bolder and brighter.
If it'll make him brighter, count me in.
Personal System 2 is faster. Oh, and it has incredible power.
Someone say, power?
It's a miracle. He's following instructions.
Hey, we were made for each other.
Is it easy to use?
Even you could use it.
Can we tie it all together?
Ooh, Personal System 2 has excellent connectivity.
So we can talk to each other?
Only if we have to.
It's just what we need. Who's responsible for this?
IBM.
Introducing the new Personal System 2 family from IBM.
Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm looking back at the mega hit TV series MASH, and, more specifically, actor Larry Linville's decision to walk away from the show after just the 5th season. One of the main characters is Major Frank Burns, played to perfection by Larry Linville. Frank was a civilian doctor who, well, now he's embraced, or should I say, relishes military life. He is one of the higher ranking officers at the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, also called MASH, unit. Frank Burns is at constant odds with his tent mates and other surgeons, Hawkeye and Trapper John, and even later BJ Honeycutt, and he loves to remind them that he has a higher rank than they do. Additionally, Frank Burns, despite having a wife back in the States, is deeply in love with the head surgical nurse, Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, and while the two of them are unified in their despise of the lack of respect that the other doctors seem to have about all things military, it's clear that Margaret does not like the fact that Frank is married and won't end things with his wife. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I think Larry Linville was perfect in his portrayal of Frank Burns. He is hilarious in this role, playing a character that you just love to hate. He could be arrogant, vindictive, whiny, and pathetic all in the same episode. He was a real weasel. With all of that said, I couldn't help but feel sorry for the guy when Margaret gets engaged to Colonel Donald Penobscot and is married towards the end of Season 5. Ironically, Linville had originally signed on to MASH with a 5-year contract. So when the show's producers offered him a 2-year contract extension at the end of Season 5, well, he decided to walk away. That's right, he walked away. Now who would do that following a year in which the show finished with a top 5 spot in the Nielsen ratings? Well, I've read that he just felt that he had taken the character as far as he could, and so he decided it was time to pursue other acting opportunities. With Frank Burns' departure from the show, David Ogden Stiers joined the cast as Major Charles Emerson Winchester III, and while I liked Winchester, the show was already becoming a bit more serious in my opinion, and not quite as funny as it had been in the first few seasons. Larry Linville's acting career would go on, but never quite with the same level of success that he had with MASH. He would make quite a few guest appearances in a variety of television shows including The Rockford Files, Chips, The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, and Murder, She Wrote, just to name a few. Sadly, Larry Linville passed away on April 10th of the year 2000 at the age of 60 due to pneumonia, although he had lost one of his lungs due to cancer just a couple of years prior. I've read comments about Linville from fellow MASH stars Gary Berghoff and Jamie Farr, and both of them state that Linville was really one of the nicest people you could ever meet. It seems to me when I talk to my friends about MASH, there's a pretty even split between those who like the early seasons versus those who like the later seasons the best. I myself am probably in the camp of liking the earliest seasons the best. However, I do think that pretty much all seasons of MASH are pretty dang good television. I really look forward to reading your comments. Are you a bigger fan of the early seasons or later seasons of MASH? Do you even remember seeing Linville in any of the shows he made guest appearances in later on? As always, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Also, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel, where I talk about movies, music, and TV shows from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Thanks again, stay safe, and have a wonderful day.